What's going on, y'all? I'm your host, Cool Colas, and today I have a new video on my channel for you all to check out. For today's topic, we're going to be talking about how a racist white woman profited over $600K in crowdfunding after calling a young black boy the hard ER, if you know what I mean. So let's get into it. So there was a situation recently that took place at Soldiers Field Memorial Park, which is in Rochester, Minnesota. And there was a racist white woman whose name is Shiloh Hendrix. And this woman is not just a suspected or speculated white supremacist. She literally is a white supremacist because she blatantly called a young black boy the hard ER. And it was filmed. It was bleeped out in a lot of videos because they didn't want people to hear the word being said, but you know how that goes. But she still said it and it was recorded. And ultimately, there was a man there as well too, and I believe the man's name was Shamark Omar, who was 30 years old. And this man confronted her about her using this language and talking about, how he was, again, hard ER. And so when I saw this video, I said to myself, this is kind of interesting and somewhat reminiscent as well, too, of something. This is Rochester, Minnesota. Who else do we know from Minnesota who is a cave-dwelling, mayonnaise-eating white supremacist who was rewarded for being racist? I wonder who. Anyway, in this video, Shiloh claimed that this young boy had stolen from her toddler's diaper bag. So that caused her to hurl the hard ER as a result of this action. And so my thoughts on this were, this is a child. This is a child. Children do what they do. And ultimately, if it was something that bothered you that much, then what you should have done was gone to the parent, the guardian, whoever it is that was in charge of that kid, and let them know that this was happening and that you would like for this to stop and for them to not do that to your kid, and they need to do something about that. If you did that, that would have been the proper way to handle it. But no, we know that you are a white supremacist, so you decided to be racist and spew your racist hate because of the fact that you already had these feelings before, and you decided to justify yourself by saying, well, he was stealing, so that's the reason why I called him the hard ER. And even if this was a teenager or even an adult or somebody who just knew better and just shouldn't be stealing from somebody, you're still a racist. You're still a mayonnaise eating racist because of the fact that you called them the hard ER. And that's the problem with a lot of these Negroes out here. A lot of you silly ass Sambo pick me Negroes have a bad habit of looking at a situation where a black person gets taken down, and then you will throw the book at that person, talk about how they shouldn't have done this, they shouldn't have done that, they need to go down, and all this other stuff, right? But then you'll turn a blind eye to the racism that was used to take that person down. Like, you'll see a lot of these black celebrities and then they'll get caught up in some type of scandal and then they'll get locked up, and then every black person is hooting and hollering on social media about how they need to lock this person up and throw away the key. But then they won't analyze the racist system that may have gotten them on something that had nothing to do with what they did. So, for example, if somebody committed a sex crime and then you decided to indict them because you wanted to get their money, not because you wanted to get justice for what they did to some girls, some young girls at that. Anyway, this is really not about black people and how they handle these types of situations, because for the most part, when it comes to this situation, a lot of us have been on code with one another. We haven't done the whole we's our worst enemy. We haven't done all that shit. A lot of us are looking at this and we're outraged by this shit. We're seeing this and we're really just on the same page about this being an act of white supremacy. If anything, we were probably wishing that Omar would have gone harder than what he did when he was speaking to this woman, because he had a lot of restraint. This is a child. This child was being literally verbally attacked by a racist white woman who, by the way, I believe was Ukrainian. So I think she was a European immigrant, and she was out here, spewing this racist rhetoric that she had. This bitch was probably in Ukraine somewhere, living on a diet of mayonnaise and boiled cabbage and pork fat and shit. So this old haggard bird looking bitch decided to do a give, send, go fundraiser online, basically to raise money to say that, she feared for her family's life. She needed some money so that she would be able to protect her family and get them to somewhere that was safe because, she didn't know now who was going to target her and all this other stuff. And she also said that, her social security number had been leaked online. And we don't even know if all of this shit is even true. But regardless, she made a campaign to make it seem like she was a victim when she is the one who literally spewed a racial slur, a very deeply rooted racial slur at a young black child. So she literally flipped the script to try to make herself seem like she was the victim here when she was the one who literally called a young black child a racial slur. So what you all just witnessed with this situation is what I call the triple R. The racist revenge reward. And let me explain what that is. As of late, and when I say as of late, because I've seen a lot of examples of it, that being within the last maybe 5-ish years or so, I've been seeing this big trend of these white supremacists who will do something that is usually blatantly racist. And they'll get caught up in some shit because one of us will either film it or will talk about it, or they'll get caught up in something where they're basically held to their feet are held to the fire for this type of thing. And then they'll either play innocent or they'll try to justify what they did or whatever the case may be. And they'll usually pull on the heartstrings of other white supremacists who are just as angry and hateful and all this other shit as they are themselves when they actually made the joke or they made the statement or they did whatever they did in the first place. And you can see this in many different examples. I talked about y'all's girl Tiffy time a little bit earlier. There's also your boy Kyle Rittenhouse. And in this case, we're going to talk about Shiloh. Now, some of y'all are going to say Kyle Rittenhouse is not in this because I know there's some male supremacists who are watching this in their trailer park right now. But my point is that he's a part of this too because his aim was to off some black people, although he shot some white people. So it still was with that same racist intent, but he still was able to get off. So what they do a lot of times is when these white supremacists go around and they do something that's blatantly racist or do something that's blatantly harmful, especially if it's with the intent to harm somebody of another race, they reward them for what they have done. And Shiloh is just the most recent case of them doing this. If anything, it's probably the worst case when it comes to the financial aspect. In my opinion, this issue closely mirrors, and this is just my take on it, what happened in the movie Sinners. Think about the Remick character, and then when he was going up to those KKK couple's house, and he was talking about how there were some people who were trying to get him, and he needed safe harbor and all this other stuff. And think about the idea that Remick actually was an Irish immigrant, but he still had the appearance of being white, and they still let him in. They still were like, you know what, come on in, we got you, whatever the case may be. And this situation is kind of similar in the idea that you have this woman who probably was living on a diet of nasty ass boiled cabbage and pork fat and mayonnaise. And here she is bringing her ass over here and pandering to the white supremacists here in America who are funding what she is saying because they want to, again, reward the fact that she's being racist. In the case of Remick, it was similar in the idea that he was saying that he was a victim and they didn't know anything about this man. They just knew the fact that he was a white dude, and eventually they saw that he was being pursued by these red natives. But, just the idea that he was white alone and that he was making a claim of being a victim of something, gave him their sympathy. Hell, she lucky that somebody FBA didn't roll up there and smack the mayonnaise and the wet poodle smell up out her ass. Don't be surprised if this is an ongoing trend though, y'all, because these suspected white supremacists are getting desperate and now they'll do anything in order to fund their racism in some way, because what they're trying to do is normalize this idea that they can go around and they can do things that are racist, even if it's blatantly racist, and that they'll be rewarded for it. So they're trying to make this a trend and they're trying to make this a big thing because, again, what they can do is reward somebody because they've done something that speaks to the way that they feel, because they know that they're now living in a world where they can't use these blatant epithets to actually talk about us without them receiving the label of being a racist and them losing everything that they actually have. Real truth though, y'all, is the reason why this is happening is because these male supremacists are pissed because of what happened with Carmelo Anthony. That's literally all this is about. And because they're pissed, they're trying to use this as revenge, as I said, in order to get back at black society for standing with him for the most part. So that's why now they're trying to back this useless Ukrainian woman because of the fact that they want to be able to hype her up as their male queen who was able to get away and normalize this idea that hate speech is not really hate, it's just free speech. This is also one of the reasons why we need an anti-black hate crime bill, something that's going to protect black people when they have situations like this that are going on, when you have either institutional racism, systemic racism, or blatant racism where a black person is attacked because of the fact that they are black. Because ultimately, if this child is stealing once again, he doesn't deserve to be called an hard ER for it. This is a message to the parents of this kid. You need to sue Shiloh, because what you're doing by doing that is setting this precedent that, hey, if you do something racist to us in black society, you're not going to be able to get away with it. You're going to set an example, because if they tried this shit again, then we could come back and say, okay, well, we fighting that shit back. I mean, you were over here calling them the hard ER. That wasn't justifiable. Shoot, I know one thing. If she gets that $600,000 or more than that, she need to take that money and buy her a lifetime supply of damn Dove, because her ass looks like she ain't showered in about 2 months. Other thing that she need to do, she need to get her a BBL and some titties or something like that, because she over there looking like Gollum from Lord of the Rings and shit. Anyway, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I definitely will have more to come in the future. In the meantime, I would love it if you like the video, subscribe, share, and hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. Other than that, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.